The exact microsecond the chemical hacker initiates a brute force attack on your central nervous system. Look at your hands. They aren't yours anymore. They are foreign biological manipulators, leased out to a molecular parasite that doesn't care about your mortgage, your mother's birthday, or your survival. You are sitting in the deceptive warmth of your apartment, the hum of the refrigerator acting as a white noise sedative. But inside the dark basement of your brain, the architect has been uninstalled. A single notification, a blue, sterile coordinate map on a cracked screen, has just overwritten 20 years of evolution. The smell of your home, dust, old coffee, fabric softener, suddenly becomes toxic. You crave the scent of industrial rot. You stand up, and your movements are jerky, uncalibrated, like a marionette with tangled strings. You watch yourself zip up your jacket through a layer of thick psychological fog. This is the domestic virus. It doesn't need to break into your house. It makes you leave it. You step into the hallway, and the stagnant air feels like a cold lead blanket. The elevator drops you into the underworld, and as the doors open, the city greets you with a jagged, sub-zero blade of wind that cuts through your skin, searching for any remaining warmth to delete. You are walking now, but you aren't the one steering. You are a passenger in your own skull, screaming behind a locked firewall while your legs carry you toward the urban wasteland. The concrete under your boots is slick with a black, oily film, the sweat of a dying city. Your breath comes out in jagged white plumes, obscuring the world until all that's left is the neon orange arrow on your screen, pointing toward the abyss. You've crossed the threshold. The city center, once a cathedral of commerce, is now a graveyard for the living. You aren't going to work. You aren't going home. You are going to the node. Welcome to the hive. Here, under the flickering, sickly yellow hum of a dying street lamp, the laws of humanity have been permanently deleted from the hard drive. You aren't alone, but you've never been more solitary. Everywhere you look, shadows are folded in the dark. These aren't people. They are biological status bars, stuck at 0%. Some are bent so sharply their foreheads almost touch the frozen pavement, their spines curved into a question mark that the universe will never answer. Others have their heads thrown back, staring at the black, starless sky with dilated, pitch-black pupils, dead pixels in a corrupted file. The atmosphere is heavy with the stench of visual rage, rusted oil drums, piles of wet, stinking trash, and the chemical ozone that clings to the back of your throat like powdered glass. You find your spot in the concrete alley, and the vertical drop begins. You feel the gravity of the parasite pulling your consciousness down into the vacuum. Paranoia isn't a feeling here. It's a physical weight, a heavy iron collar that tightens with every passing headlight. You stand there, a human statue in a forest of frozen ghosts, and the sheer, crushing weight of the silence is broken only by the rhythmic, wet cough of a shadow 10 feet away, whose lungs are filling with industrial fluid. And as a police siren wails 3 blocks over, you don't even flinch because your fight or flight response has been uninstalled and replaced by a loop of static, and you realize with a soul-shattering clarity, every person in this alley is an individual cell in a massive cancerous organism that is currently consuming itself in broad daylight while the rest of the world buys groceries and goes to the movies, totally unaware that the synthetic ghost has just finished mapping the coordinates of their own downfall. And as your head tilts back and your eyes lock into the vertical void, you see the sun for the last time, but it doesn't look like light. It looks like a hole in the sky where your future used to be. And you realize that the architect didn't just lose the keys to the empire. He burned the blueprints and salted the earth, leaving nothing but this shivering, masked shell to stand watch over the ruins of a life that was deleted by a 2-milligram sentence. You are the glitch. You are the resource being mined. You are the data that the system is currently wiping. Around you, the other nodes sway in a slow, agonizing unison, a dance of the dead driven by machine logic. There is no empathy here. There is no we. There is only the virus and its fuel. Your skin turns the color of wet concrete. Your heart slows to a funereal pace. And as the chemical fog thickens, the city around you dissolves into a low-resolution nightmare where the only thing that is real is the cold, and the only thing that is true is the void. The air in this concrete corridor is no longer oxygen. It is a stagnant, pressurized mix of industrial lead, frozen iron, and the sharp metallic tang of your own adrenaline-soaked fear. Your body has ceased to be a sovereign empire. It is now a crime scene where the evidence is being systematically erased in real time. Every single nerve ending in your extremities is screaming, a chaotic, dissonant choir of biological alarms triggered by a sub-zero sub-zero chill that is beginning to crystallize the very water in your cells. But the parasite nestled in your prefrontal cortex has effectively muted the volume of your survival instinct. You are freezing. Your core temperature is plummeting into the lethal zone, a steady descent into the dark waters of hypothermia, and the architect inside is pounding against the reinforced glass walls of your consciousness, begging you to turn around, to run back to the radiator, to the sanctuary of a heavy wool blanket. But the synthetic ghost is the one holding the steering wheel of your motor functions, and it whispers in a voice smoother than spilled oil and colder than liquid nitrogen. Just 5 more minutes. Look under the rusted pipe near the foundation. The void is almost comfortable now. Stay. The shivers are just your body's way of cheering for the finish line. This is the ultimate primordial betrayal. Your own biology, honed and perfected over millions of years of brutal evolution to keep you away from the jagged edge of the abyss, has been recoded. Your hardware is now actively working for the enemy. You feel the cold, viscous sweat on your forehead, turning into a thin, jagged sheet of ice under the rim of your mask, yet you remain motionless, a biological statue erected in a graveyard of will. You find yourself praying to the stained walls of your apartment as if they were a distant, forgotten god from a previous incarnation. You try to visualize the simple, divine luxury of a heavy iron door with 3 deadbolts, the scent of clean, sun-dried laundry, the hum of a normal, boring life where the biggest threat was a late utility bill. You would trade your entire biography, every memory of your mother's voice calling you home for dinner, every ounce of your remaining human dignity, just to be teleported back into that warmth for 1 second. But your feet are blocks of dead grey wood. They are disconnected from the motherboard. They refuse to execute the simplest command of retreat. Your lungs feel like they are being lined with powdered glass and rusted needles with every shallow, shivering breath you draw into your collapsing chest. The paranoia that someone or something is watching from the periphery becomes a physical weight on your shoulders, a heavy iron yoke pressing your spine into a permanent curve of total, abject submission. You are crying, but the tears freeze on your cheeks before they can even reach the edge of your hockey mask, turning into salt crusts that itch like fiberglass. You are a hostage trapped inside a biological suit that has stopped taking orders from its rightful owner. The architect is forced to watch the system crash in slow motion, helpless, as the user.deleted protocol reaches 95% completion. You are standing in the middle of a crowded, uncaring wasteland, a monument to human error, begging for a mercy that your own brain has been programmed to ignore. The betrayal is total, the house is on fire, and you are the one holding the match with a smile you can't even feel, unable to drop it because the command to let go has been deleted from your registry. The sun begins to bleed through the heavy industrial smog of the city center, but it offers no warmth, only a harsh, clinical and unforgiving light that exposes the true, sickening scale of the wreckage. You look at the horde around you, the other frozen statues scattered across the alleyway like discarded mannequins. And for the first time in this loop, you don't see people. You don't see tragic stories or lost souls. You see corrupted files. You see a mass system failure where the source code of humanity has been overwritten by industrial rot and chemical waste. The visual rage of the morning reveals every brutal detail. The grey, waxy texture of the skin, the hollowed-out sockets where ambition and love used to reside, and the dirt-stained masks that have become the only faces these biological ghosts have left to show the uncaring world. And in that moment of absolute soul-crushing despair, at the very nadir of your existence, a spark of the original architect flickers back to life in the deepest, most protected sector of your mind. The architect wakes up, not the one who builds golden palaces in the clouds, but the one who understands exactly how to dismantle a prison from the inside by identifying the one structural brick that holds the entire illusion together. You realize with a violent clarity that the synthetic ghost is just a script, a sophisticated but ultimately fragile piece of software that relies entirely on your own biological hardware to run its destructive, recursive loops. The paranoia, the vertical void, the agonizing sensation of phantom spiders crawling under your muscle fibers. It's all fake data. It's a simulation designed by a molecular predator to keep the parasite fed on your fear. To break the loop, you don't just quit. You perform a hard, manual reset of the entire operating system. You begin to manually overwrite the corrupted lines of code with the only thing the parasite cannot simulate, cannot predict, and cannot withstand: the raw, unadulterated, and primal will to exist. You start with a single conscious breath, not the shallow, whimpering gasp of a victim, but the deep, rhythmic, and intentional inhalation of a predator reclaiming its lost territory. One bit of data at a time, you fight for control. You regain the use of your right hand. You feel feel the agonizing electric sting of returning circulation, the primal grounding of physical pain that proves you are still anchored to a reality outside of the chemical lie. You turn your back on the alley, on the horde of frozen shadows, and on the neon-orange promise of a chemical peace that is actually a mass grave for your potential. Every heavy step you take away from the node is a city block won back from the virus in a war of attrition. You walk back toward the urban center, but you are no longer a part of the matrix that governs the herd. You see the skyscrapers not as monuments of human power, but as empty, hollow shells reflecting a dying sun. You see the people rushing to their morning shifts not as mannequins, but as potential mirrors of your own internal struggle, each one fighting a silent war for their own motherboard. The architect is wide awake now, and the empire he is rebuilding in the ashes of the old world isn't made of concrete, steel, or vanity. It's made of absolute clarity and unyielding, razor-sharp boundaries. You reach the heavy iron door of your apartment. You turn the key with a hand that finally belongs to you again, and as the bolt slides into place with a definitive metallic thud that echoes through the empty hallway like a judge's gavel, you realize the forest didn't follow you home this time. The synthetic ghost has been quarantined in the dark sectors of your memory. The system is rebooting in safe mode, clearing the cache of 1,000 chemical lies. Your new reality doesn't start with a synthetic forgery of happiness. It starts with the cold, hard, and beautiful truth of your own reclaimed sovereignty. The loop is broken. The architect is back in control of the motherboard, and the first line of the new code is, "I am."